If there's one piece of life advice that we've all heard in some form or another before, it is to follow your passion. From books to movies to news articles that glamorize the next new entrepreneur who's toughing it out and chasing their dreams, we've all been told a similar story. If you find your passion, your purpose, your calling, or whatever you want to name it, your whole life will fall into place. This is something that I clung on to as well when I was in high school or secondary school or junior college if you're in Singapore. I was so sure that if I found my one thing, I would be able to find the area of study that I loved in university and eventually go on to find a job that I loved, and my whole life would be filled with meaning and joy. In some ways, that's exactly what happened, but in other ways, it isn't. And through my conversations with peers and other people who are currently working, as well as my own experiences, I've come to realize that there are problems with this linear way of looking at success and what it means to lead a meaningful life. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So whether you're stressing out about not having found something that drives you yet, or you've already found your thing, stick around because I think this video might add some value to the way that you look at your life. And as always, timestamps are in the description when you need them. The first thing is that flowers of passion take time to blossom. I think one of the misconceptions that's come up multiple times in my conversations with other people is that passion just appears out of nowhere. Like if you're lucky, it strikes you in this flash of inspiration when you're least expecting it. Like some people have it and some people just don't. But I think the reality is that passion doesn't appear overnight for anyone. Like flowers, they take time to be planted, watered, nourished before they can bloom. Just think about all the people in your life who are super good at dancing or art or music. I'm sure a lot of them started doing this a lot earlier on in life when they were children, either because their parents forced them to take supplementary classes or because it's an area that they were genuinely interested in from a very young age. I think a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert, who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love, can really help to illustrate my point. She says, "It is seeds of curiosity that can lead to flowers of passion." Not all of us have a passion, but most of us will have a few things that we are curious about. The real challenge then is to make space to listen to and follow these threads. Let me give you an example from my personal life. For those of you who've watched a couple of my videos, you might know that I developed an interest in the environment when I was around 17, and that has been a major driving force for a lot of the things that I've done in my life since then. In fact, I probably would not be at Yale if not for this so-called passion of mine. And I also am quite certain that my future career will involve environmental issues in some form or another. But this passion of mine had very humble beginnings. It really just started out with me reading a newspaper every day. Reading the papers every day and then realizing that there were all these environmental issues, both in Singapore and globally, that I was not being taught in school. I remember reading some of the stats and feeling so outraged and saddened that I would post them on social media. And this was back in the day when no one talked about environmental issues. Just reading the papers was the catalyst for me to go on to read more, to learn more, to attend conferences, to volunteer. One thing led to another and I fell in love with this line of work, and is what has led me to where I am today. And so the reason why I am here is really just because I followed my curiosity. I found myself compelled to the things that I was reading and I went on to find out more. But if I had decided to close the newspapers, walk away and keep studying for law school or med school, which were both options, believe it or not, at some point, I would not be where I am today. But the sad thing is, a lot of us have not had the time or opportunity to really explore our curiosities because we're always rushing through life. We're going from primary school to secondary school to junior college to working to having kids, that we don't have time to just slow down and really explore our interests just for the fun of it. People who are about to graduate high school or my peers who are about to graduate college are especially stressed out about having to figure everything out before applying to university or before finding a job, when this is the time in our life that we should be experimenting and exploring our interests. And it doesn't help that we're held back by all these preconceived notions of what it means to be successful. Not only expectations from ourselves, but also expectations from family or from society that keeps us on this path of what we think leads to success, instead of really understanding ourselves and what makes us happy. I just wanted to jump in real quick to say something that might not have been very clear from this caption. I was very lucky because I had a supportive family and already had an idea of what I was interested in. but I still felt this implicit pressure from society or something because I decided to study something that wasn't the norm. Also, a side note is that it's been so interesting to read my Instagram captions from over 5 years ago before I even thought about applying to Yale. Maybe I should do a video on that or something because I really changed from who I was when I was a kid. But anyway, back to the video. But on the flip side, I don't think it's ever too late to explore your curiosities. I mean, what is one thing or a couple of skills that you've previously thought would be cool to learn? And even if that doesn't morph into something more, I think a life spent exploring the different things that spark your interest still sounds pretty good to me. I'm going to finish off this point by reading a quote that I really resonate with by Phil Wong from Wongfu Productions. For those of you who draw a blank when people say to chase your dreams, it's okay. It's okay to not be sure yet. Honestly, I didn't know my passion was storytelling and directing either. I knew I enjoyed it. I knew it was something I was good at, but passion is such a heavy word, and as a 21-year-old, how was I supposed to be sure? But here's the thing. I didn't chase my passion, but became passionate about what I chased. And you should do the same, whether it's a job or just a hobby, because what's more important than just having a dream is having the ambition to reach them. So be ambitious and enthusiastic in everything that you do. Just don't live life passively. Explore with vigor and zeal, and I assure you, your life will be better for this. Second point is to embrace multi-potentiality. For some reason, when we talk about finding our passion, it always seems to be in the singular, as though our goal in life should be to find the one thing that we've been put on this earth to do, and then we're set. But as Emily Wapnick says in her TED Talk, not all of us are meant to be specialists. She introduces this idea of multi-potentialites, who are people who have multiple interests and creative pursuits, who don't have one true calling but are interested in dabbling in many different areas and mastering and learning new skills all the time. I definitely agree with her, but I don't necessarily see a defined line between multi-potentialites and specialists, because I personally don't identify with either one of those things. I think instead that all of us have a little bit of multi-potentiality within us. And yes, I did make up that word. We all can have multiple interests that come in and out of our lives as we grow and discover and learn more about ourselves. For instance, I didn't have any interest in making videos or learning languages until I was midway through college. And even within environmental studies, there's so many different ways and skills in which I can specialize. For example, in journalism or data science or policy making or law. I haven't exactly figured out which one interests me the most, but that's okay because I have my entire life to figure that out. And so we should stop trying to box ourselves into a one role and instead just pursue whatever calls to us, even if we end up quitting down the line. Not only does it bring us joy in the moment, which I think is enough reason to do it, but this knowledge also usually comes in handy in our lives somewhere down the line. For example, Steve Jobs talks about how he took this calligraphy class once just because it fascinated him, not thinking there would be any application to his real life. But 10 years down the line, all this knowledge of script and typography came in handy when he was designing the first Mac computer. In his words, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. So you have to trust that they will connect somewhere down the road, because that will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. My next point is that your passion is not obligated to pay the bills or be your primary source of income. In an ideal world, we'd all be studying or working on something that we love to do, but unfortunately the reality isn't like that. Some of us haven't been raised to think about what we're passionate about, and some of us simply can't afford to. A lot of my friends are interested in doing research or going into academia for a career, but it's financially very difficult in those fields and have therefore decided to pivot towards doing consulting or finance instead to pay the bills. Some people might have a passion, but they're terrible at it and they could never make it into a career. And some people voluntarily choose not to turn their passion into a career, like an artist friend of mine who doesn't want to sell his photographs because he's afraid that one day he will start to take photos just based on what sells instead of his own inner creative expression. And when I was thinking about all of this, I realized that we live in a culture that really romanticizes this idea of having one true calling, and having that calling be the primary source of income. But it doesn't need to be that way. Our passion or calling or whatever can be totally separate from our paycheck. For example, in her book Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert, who's also the author of Eat, Pray, Love, as I mentioned earlier, knew that writing was her calling ever since she was very young, and she was writing every day in her 20s. But she never intended to become a full-time writer because she never wanted to burden her creativity with the task of paying the bills. She only decided to go into it full-time when her book Eat, Pray, Love became as popular as it did and finally was earning enough to support her financially. But she kept emphasizing in the book that she would have kept writing even if Eat, Pray, Love did not blow up in the way that it did, just because she loves to do it. So I encourage you to try and find a passion, to find something or many things that you like to do just because it makes you happy, even if it doesn't pay the bills. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line it will morph into something more, but that doesn't need to be the central focus right now. So the next point is that passion goes by many names. When we say the word passion, I think we envision someone with a deep, fiery, burning love for something deep in their heart that they cannot ever let go of. But the reality is that a lot of people have found meaning in the things that they do without necessarily calling it a passion. For example, I have friends who have been doing computer science and coding ever since they were like 15, going for competitions and things. And these same friends have gone on to intern at tech companies like Google and Facebook and will definitely work in some kind of job that requires coding in the future. But when I asked them if coding or computer science is their passion, they hesitated to say yes. For them, rather than describing it as a passion, it seems to be almost something that sits in an intersection between something that they're good at and something that they could find meaning in doing. For me, this is a pretty good illustration of the first point, which is to follow your curiosities, because I'm sure a lot of my friends did not set out to do computer science because they wanted to make it their career for the rest of their lives, but just because it was something that interested them at that point. And I think this is a great segue into my final point of this video, which is the question that I want to pose to you. What guides your compass? You see, the thing is that you can find fulfillment in whatever path you take, as long as you find value in it. There are people in this world who have followed their passion and have found fulfillment, who have followed money and found fulfillment, and who maybe just have a job that allows them to help people that they don't necessarily love, but they found fulfillment in that as well. And of course, there are people who don't work and are fulfilled. There are housewives, there are retired people, there are kids who don't work and are perfectly happy and contented with their lives. Why are we using careers as the litmus for finding fulfillment and living a happy and healthy and meaningful life? And yes, when I think about it, we're talking about following a passion in this video, but at the root of it, what we're asking is, how do we find happiness? The key is then to find out what that looks like to you, because ultimately we all have different life circumstances, values, beliefs, and visions of what it means to lead a happy life. So even though I personally want to do what I love, it might not be the same for you. You might have different values, and that's okay because fulfillment is subjective. And so I'm really not in any place to judge however anyone else wants to live their life. I was watching this video by Mrs. Midwest, and she said something that really resonated with me. Personal fulfillment doesn't come because you checked off certain boxes or because you used certain talents. It comes when you have true contentment and true gratitude for your life situation. And I think she's completely right. If you stuck around till here, do me a huge favor and like this video if you enjoyed it. It really does help me reach more people. I've also been thinking about doing a series called something like Notes from a Yale Senior, because I've been having a lot of existential questions and thoughts, kind of like the ones that I'm sharing in this video, and I just wanted to have a space where I could document it and share it with you guys for whoever is going through the same thing now or might be in the future. So let me know in the comments below if that's something that you would be interested in. By the way, I do read all of your comments and take them to heart, and so because of the number of requests on last week's video, which I will link down here, I will have a tip video on how to take the first steps to really enjoy being on your own, coming real soon. Until then, I hope all of you stay safe, stay positive, and yeah, have a brilliant day. Bye.